What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating our confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm a self-diagnosed ADHD entrepreneur with a vision to see more women break out of the mold society tells us we're supposed to fit into and start living lives that we're excited about. My goal is to help other neurospicy entrepreneurs work sustainability and individuality into your business so that your business works for you and supports a life that lights you up. So I hope you find encouragement and inspiration in these episodes. Let's get into it. So today I want to talk about three big things that come up when we are looking to push through resistance. Or excuse me, three things that help us push through resistance. So we've been talking a lot about figuring out what you want to do, kind of focusing on your goal, and then taking that first action. And now we're into what kind of happens and what comes up when we start taking that action towards building that life we want, taking that first baby step, starting that business, whatever that is. Last week, we talked about three common things that kind of come up when you start like going to take that action and those reasons that we don't, and kind of what holds us back. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, because I'm a bi-weekly girly. And today I want to talk about three kind of tools and things that can help empower us and to be able to push through that type of resistance. Okay. So let's dive right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is your why. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's the reason you're doing what you're doing. Okay. So whether that is starting a book, writing a family, okay, we're doing great. Starting a family, writing a book, traveling, starting a business, starting a podcast, making a big life change, like whatever that is, one of the powerful things is our own conviction that like this is it. Like this is what we want to do. This is the season that we're in right now. Even if it's not something you want to do for the rest of your life. And that was really powerful for me. That's why I bring it up. For a long time, I struggled with figuring out what I wanted to do because I felt like it had to be this huge, like once in a lifetime thing. And I had to pick like one thing, and then that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Doesn't have to be that. But I want to encourage you to have conviction about what you're doing, whether that's right now, in this season, to start with, whatever it is, there's a reason you're doing it. And so the more familiar you get with that reason and really digging down into the why, then you have that like in your back pocket for when things come up. So you can remind yourself why you're really doing this and what that purpose is. And that is part of what reminds you like why it's so important for you to continue on this path when you encounter resistance, speed bumps, roadblocks, naysayers, haters, like whatever, right? And so what I mean with the why, it's like the deepest, realist, actual reason that you're doing whatever it is you want to do. Okay. So say for example, like you want to write a book. Okay. One of the things I love using is it's called a five whys exercise. And you basically just ask yourself why until you get down to that core deep reason. So if you want to write a book, right, then you're like, okay, why? Why do I want to write a book? And it's like, well, because I want to be someone who wrote a book. Okay. Why do you want to be someone who wrote a book? And it's like, okay, because I feel like an author is an expression of, something that I have like in my soul. Okay. Amazing. Why do you feel like being an author is that way to express your soul? And it's like, okay, well, I really feel like I have a story to tell. And so being an author is going to allow me to tell that story. Okay, great. Why do you feel like you have a story that you need to tell? And it's like, I have a story or stories plural, right? That I feel like if I share it with other people, it can impact people, maybe expand their worldview or make them think about things in a way that they never thought of, or maybe bring people together or help people move away from hate to love or like whatever reason that is. Oftentimes, if we ask ourselves why enough, we actually get to a really deep, powerful reason. And so I encourage people to go through this exercise so that you have that reason like handy and available to you in those moments when maybe you're feeling discouraged or you don't feel motivated or you want to give up, right? And when you're in those places where you're kind of already in the dark place, it can be hard to kind of pull ourselves up and be like, why am I even doing this? Right? If you're anything like me, if you're not feeling it and you're already discouraged and you're like, why am I even doing this? You're like, I don't know. Good point. Let's stop. Or because I'm an idiot. I have great things to say to myself when I'm super discouraged. So I encourage people to do this. Like when you're excited, when you're in a good place, when you're feeling motivated, when you're feeling that conviction of like, no, this is important. This is something that matters to me. This is something that I really want to do, right? It's like, if you're traveling and part of why this is so important is because there's a different why for every person, right? Some people want to travel because they want to like collect experiences or they want to see the world or they want to see different landmarks, right? And they feel like that um either just the opportunity or maybe they want to experience cultures and because they want that input on them and they kind of build their personhood from each place that they've been to and it shapes and molds them or maybe they want to go to a specific place and immerse themselves in the culture and learn the language or maybe you're just maybe you want to travel around and see if there's someplace else you would want to live and like start a life. Like everybody has their different reasons, and so that's part of why it's so powerful for you to go through this exercise for yourself because someone else's why is not going to motivate you the same way that your why will. Because it's personal to you, and that's gonna be like your conviction, like your reason for doing this, and why it's important to you, which is a powerful pairing because there's a reason that whatever this is that you want to do is on your heart, not someone else's, right? If you pull your friends or like the people in your workplace, right? And you're like, I don't know, what do you want to do with your life? Or what are you most excited about? Or what new thing do you want to start? Or, what are you looking forward to? You're going to get a different answer from each different person because we're all designed differently and we have different motivations and different priorities and like different desires on our hearts, right? So that is why I think it's so important for you to go through the exercise yourself so that you know why it matters to you. Because it's like if you want to be a doctor because your parents want you to be a doctor, that is completely different than you want to be a doctor because you want to make a difference in people's lives or you get it. Okay, let's move on. So the first tool that I want to talk about, which we just did, is your why. I also want to tag on here, in some of my coaching sessions, I've encountered where my clients feel like their why like isn't good enough. And or sometimes, especially with the way like women are socialized in this society, we can feel like our why is selfish. So if it's something along the lines of self-expression, or maybe like the book example, right? Like you feel like you have a story to tell that's going to make an impact on people. And you feel like, this self-expression is a way to like get that story out and make that impact. If your why is about self-expression or sharing your story or creating this art based on like just a desire that you have in you, sometimes we can try to talk ourselves out of it like, oh, that's selfish, like that only benefits me, or maybe art might be beautiful but like that's not a good enough reason. Stop. Okay, we do this to ourselves and we're like, I think we're kind of trained to feel like it's not good enough and then there has to be some kind of like world altering thing. And I want to encourage you to kind of take a step back and be like, first of all, even if you only impact one person's life, isn't that enough? Because how powerful is a life, right? And impacting one person is enough. And I want to take it further and say, even if that one person is you, it's enough. I don't believe that you expressing what you feel like your purpose is, whether it's in your life or this season, I don't feel like it's only going to impact you. But even if it does, it's still more than worth it, right? Think about your life. And if something can have a positive impact on one person, how important is that? Audre Lorde says, in a world full of turmoil, remember that joy is an act of resistance. So even if something just brings you joy, that is powerful. I also want to take it a step further and say the selfish things that we do, whether it's self-expression or sharing a story or sharing our voice or speaking up or dance, song, acting, like something that just makes us happy and feel self-expressed, that does impact people around you in a positive way because you're setting an example and you're creating an inspiration for what is possible for them as well, right? If you're surrounded by people who aren't letting themselves or they're not allowed to pursue what is on their heart and they're stuck in this cookie cutter, system that we have and they're just a cog in the machine and they don't think that there's any other way to live their lives. And then you break out of that shell and you start living a life where you're excited to wake up every day and you're lit up and you're happy to be here, which is scary how rare that is these days. Okay. That matters. And it reminds me too of the quote of Howard Thurman that I love to quote. Don't ask what the world needs, but ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. Okay. So if your why is selfish and it's only making you feel like you're coming alive, that is more than enough. Okay. That is more than enough because that is makes such an impact on the world and the people around us and just the permission that we give other people by breaking out of that mold and doing something different. Boom, bullet number one. I also want to move on to setting boundaries. So, this is another tool that I feel like is really powerful with helping when you're feeling bogged down and you're feeling like discouraged from taking that action that you need to take to kind of turn those dreams into reality. Setting boundaries. And this is both internal and external. And maybe boundaries isn't like we'll get into it. Okay. So I want to encourage us to identify what you need to continue making progress and then establish boundaries to protect that. I know I'm reading off my notes and I hate that I'm doing that, but I feel like it helps me articulate so much better. So what I mean by that is figuring out like what do you need? What do you need to operate at your best? So we'll stick with the book example, right? You're going to need time. Maybe you need some inspiration. Maybe you need some technical knowledge, whether that's a class or doing some research or whatever that is. And we'll start with the time thing. Okay. So when you identify what you need, and even if that's like a new pen to write, if you don't have a pen, like nothing is silly. Like if you need it, and I especially want to emphasize this for my neurospicy people, is oftentimes we need things to operate at our best that we were told we aren't supposed to need. Okay. So maybe that is blasting your music so that you can focus. Or maybe that is getting out of the house so you can actually get some work done. Or maybe that is in the house with the lights off and like, whatever your vibe is to like create that atmosphere where you can be productive. We often are told, or, we get this messaging that like, you're not supposed to need that, or that's weird, or you should be able to do this without XYZ tools. Or if you would just try harder, then you wouldn't need all this extra stuff. You just want to kind of chase the shiny stuff and you're telling yourself you need all this, but you don't actually need it. Which, slippery slope. Okay. If you're one of those people who's bought a million planners because it's going to make your life get together, there's a certain point where it's like, maybe I don't need the planner. Maybe what I need is something else. So I do want to encourage you to be cognizant when we use need, but like really think about what helps me do what I need to do. So, if you need to make a phone call, right? It's like, what is going to help me do that if you're one of those people who hates phone calls? And maybe that is having a script or seeing if somebody else can make the phone call for you. Or, I don't know, calling it your most social time of the day, nighttime instead of morning, or like whatever it is, getting in touch with yourself and what helps you operate at your best so that you can understand, identify what you need, and then give yourself those things. Okay, so if it is time, right? If you're living in a household full of people and you need time alone to work on your book, you need to know that you need that, right? And then we need to be able to communicate that to the people who are in our lives and kind of set a boundary. I guess it would be more of a rule if you're asking them to not interrupt you, because a boundary is like based on your own actions. Okay, so maybe it's like I will try, working from home and I need alone time for 2 hours every day or whatever that is. And if that doesn't work at home, then I will find somewhere else to go. I'll start going to a library or a coffee shop or whatever that is. Because the boundary is about what your actions. If you're asking someone to be quiet for these 2 hours and leave me alone, I think that's technically like a rule. Sorry, I'm not actually a therapist. Okay. Um, but point being, when we identify what we need, then we're able to articulate and communicate that. Because I know for me, that can be a big hang up. If I don't know what I need and I don't know how to explain that to someone, then they don't know how to support me or like be there for me or be out of my way or like, do I help? Do I leave you alone? Like, so the more we know what we need, the easier it is to communicate that to the people who are our supporters, the people who are in our lives, the people that we're doing life with, where we either need their input or we need their support and giving us alone time or whatever that looks like. So, I want you to, with the boundaries, identify what you need and then give yourself what you can, and also use that knowing, since you've done the work to identify, to be able to communicate with the people around you. And one of the things, like my favorite thing that I loved about boundaries is we can have such a hard time with boundaries because it feels like you're saying no, right? Like, no, I can't talk to you for these 2 hours. No, you can't bother me. No, I'm not going to answer my phone. No, I'm not going to do XYZ. No, blah, blah, blah. And it can feel like really selfish and kind of icky and like really hard. Like, oh, I hate this, especially if you were raised to be a people pleaser. So, one of the reframes that has been really powerful for me is that boundaries are actually a yes. You're saying yes to yourself. You're saying yes to writing this book. You're saying yes to making this dream come true. You're saying yes to that deep core why, right? You're saying yes to expressing that, to whatever that why is. You're saying yes to following through and bringing that out into the world. And in order to do that, a lot of the time we have to say no to other things, and that's okay, but it can be a lot easier for us to swallow and for the people around us when we're able to kind of explain how we're saying yes. And Rachel Rogers says it in her book, We Should All Be Millionaires. Boundaries aren't about saying no to other people. Boundaries are about saying yes to yourself. And sometimes it is both. But if we're going to choose which part of that to focus on, we can choose to focus on the positive, and it might make it a little bit easier for us to follow through and give ourselves what we need when we're framing it as like, I'm saying yes to myself and I'm doing this for me. And like, I'm giving myself this opportunity, and you're actually coming on board with me now. When you give me these 2 hours alone, you're helping me become an author. You're helping me fulfill my dream. How amazing is that, right? Like, you're able to help me. And so instead of it just being, I'm saying no to you, and I can't spend this time with you, and you need to leave me alone, and like, no, 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 no. It's like, actually, by allowing me to have this time for myself, you're supporting me. And so it can seem like really silly, especially if you get too deep into it, right? But that's been a really powerful reframe for me. So I wanted to emphasize that for you as well. So far we have solidifying your why and then identifying what you need and setting boundaries so that you're able to give yourself what you need as much as possible. And then I also want to kind of segue into rallying your support system, right? So we were talking about how people can partner with you and supporting you with what you need to in order to do your work, to do your thing, to fulfill your why. And so when you have people who are willing to kind of partner with you and support you and cheerlead you, that is it's such a beautiful thing. I love it so much. Okay. And we were actually just talking about this in another group podcast that I was recording earlier about how like the people around you can have such a powerful impact on what is normal and like what standards you're able to like rise to, like what expectations you're able to rise to. Maybe you've heard like the crab in the bucket analogy, right? Where like if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and then one tries to climb out, the other ones will like drag them back down, which is terrifying. But I feel like a lot of people kind of have that same mentality, and we're not getting into all the reasons why, because there's a ton of reasons why, right? And a lot of it is like their own stuff. They want to feel safe, they're projecting their fears, insecurities, whatever. But regardless, some people do that. So when we're aware of that, we can look for people who are going to help pull you out of that bucket instead of pull you back down into it, right? So who we spend our time with is so important because if you're having people who are partnering with you, who are supporting you, who are cheerleading you, maybe even if they don't get it, right? But they're still like positive and supporting and encouraging, that is so helpful. And it kind of it sets a tone and creates an atmosphere that allows you to work towards your goals so much easier. Even if you have someone who is well-meaning, but they're constantly like criticizing you or giving you unsolicited advice or kind of unhelpful feedback based on maybe like what they would do if they were you, or maybe it's somebody in a different life situation, or maybe it's somebody in a different generation who doesn't really, if you're trying to be a TikTok influencer, right? They're like, that's not a real job, go get a job. Like, okay, you have good intentions, you care about me, but me having to work through this feedback time and time again is like not helpful. So if we can counter that with other people who get it, maybe, with the author example, right? Maybe you're joining a writing club, or you're joining a Facebook group for authors, or following people on social media who are authors or aspiring authors, or, join a group of people who are working towards the same thing as you so that it's normalizing what you want to do. I think that's actually really not underestimated, but you get it. I don't think we give it enough credit, how powerful it can be to normalize what it is that you want to do. That's how a lot of these like multi-level marketing schemes get happening, right? Like they have meetings and stuff, and then they all get together and they all hype each other up, and then they set this norm like, yeah, this is normal. Everybody's doing it. And so you get on board, and it's not till you get out that you're like, that was a pyramid scheme. So like it is really powerful who you choose to surround yourself with, because it creates what you feel like is normal. If you're talking to everyone in your life, they've never written a book, they have no idea how writing works, they don't want to be an author, those are going to be different conversations than if you're building a community and you're involved in a community where pretty much everybody's an author. They've all written a book, or they're writing a book, or they want to write a book. Like it's just going to be a completely different type of energy, and it really like sets a tone, and it helps like lift your belief in what you feel like is possible and your expectation for what is normal, because you're seeing this validation of what you want to do being done. So then it helps kind of change that from like, oh, I have this dream, into a reality of like, I'm surrounded by people who have this reality. And so now I just have to get me to be one of those people and kind of join that group. When you're on your own and you're surrounded by people who have never really done what you want to do, and maybe they don't get it, you feel much more alone and like you're building something from scratch. Okay? You get it. One of the powerful things too can be social media audit, like who you're following. I think a lot of the times this can be really insidious. I know for me, for a long time, I love following women because I think women are great. And then you follow like fashion or beauty and whatever. And then I didn't even realize like everyone I was following was smaller than me, which is fine. They're gorgeous, love them, great. Nobody was saying anything fat phobic. So I didn't like think that it was negatively impacting me, and no shade to them. But and I wish I could give this person credit, because someone somewhere was like, follow people who look like you. Like, follow people who are your body type. Follow people who are, maybe living a different lifestyle, who are like more like you. And that has been so powerful for me when I intentionally started following like beauty influencers, fashion influencers who were living in bigger bodies, right? and seeing like, because it ties back to the normalizing thing, right? So then I was seeing myself in them and saying like, oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, she wears this so well. I'm like, wait, I think I could actually do that. And so I want to encourage you, even if it's not something that you immediately makes you go like, no, this is bad for me. Sometimes there are those like little, it's a little more under the radar, and you're like, I'm kind of creating this norm for me, right? And we can be intentional. That's one of the cool things about social media is you can be intentional about what you seek out. Maybe if you're struggling with, I don't know, like limited mindset and you're seeking out people with a growth mindset or, this really expanded worldview and you start listening to kind of what they're talking about and what they believe and hearing these new ideas, it can help you kind of move from where you are to where you want to be more easily because it's that like that constant kind of reinforcement. So we can be intentional about that and choose the people we're following and choose the input that we're allowing into our eyes and our minds, and we can like curate that to help normalize what it is that we want normal in our own lives. So, your support system, kind of establishing the norm, conducting a social media audit, and then practice being a friend. Okay. So sometimes we can have a really hard time like accepting support or knowing how to ask for help or just kind of allowing people into that space and allowing ourselves to be seen as someone who has needs and maybe doesn't have everything together or figured out, or even kind of like on the different angle, we can feel like we're not getting enough support. And maybe you are asking and you're not getting enough support and you're like, nobody, my friends aren't liking my social media posts. They're not shopping at my business. They're not, um sharing my stuff. They're not being understanding of the alone time I need to write this book. Like whatever it is, it can be really discouraging. And then we can kind of get into this place of like, no one is supporting me. Okay. So what can be, oh, this is gonna sound so trite. I don't even know. Maybe I should edit this out. Um, okay. I'm not sure how I want to get here. And I don't know how I'm going to edit this. I'm not sure how I want to get here, but I want to get to this place where it's asking yourself, is there someone in your life that you could do a better job of supporting? It's the concept of in order to make a friend, you need to be a friend. So take an active role in being part of that norm that you want to change. Okay. So if you want a community of people who supports one another, who is commenting on people's podcasts, sharing people's social media posts, inviting people to people's book launches. Okay. If you want that for you, also do that for the people around you. And I'm not saying don't do it with any boundaries because I know so many of us are already giving way more than we can even afford to. But I do want us to take a second to consider and maybe even be strategic about who we're pouring into, but show up the way that you want people to show up for you. And we're kind of running long here. I'm not gonna get into the whole like knowing when to cut people off if it's not reciprocal. No, no, no. There are other people out there who have advice on that. But I do think that sometimes we can get into our own stuff and we can kind of get into our own heads and we can be frustrated and discouraged, like nobody's supporting me, nobody's sharing my stuff, nobody, is showing up for me. And okay, is there a way that I can show up for somebody else? Helping other people is like one of the best ways, and I don't have the research on me right now, but I've heard there's research. TikTok told me there was a study. Um, but helping other people, and I know this from experience, helps you feel better. So sometimes if you're kind of stuck in that like I have no support system, nothing's working. Showing up and supporting somebody else, being the friend that you want, can be a powerful first step to kind of setting the example of what you want in your life, but then also kind of getting yourself out of your own crap. And this isn't a super great segue, but I love this quote. We are quote heavy today. And I wanted to share, it's another one by Rachel Rogers, We Shall Be Millionaires. You can't make everyone like you, okay? But the answer is being liked by a group of people of your choosing. So when we're talking about, people not supporting you and people not showing up, not everybody's going to support you. Not everybody's going to show up. Not everybody's going to get it, okay? So be intentional about who you're letting into that circle. And I'm not saying cut everybody off, right? But, maybe boundaries, maybe distance, maybe not input into every little part of your life. But the circle that you do choose, you get to be intentional about who you're choosing and who you want in your life and allowing those people in and having discretion, right? Of like who you really let close and who you kind of keep in your outer circle. So I know it's easy to get hung up from personal experience. It can be easy to get hung up on like, are they going to like me? People don't like me. People are leaving negative comments. My friends in real life aren't like sharing my social media posts. Like they're not supporting me. What's going on? Not everybody has to like you. The answer is being liked by a group of people of your choosing. It's kind of like the chosen family thing, right? Chosen entrepreneurial support family. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to this. As a recap, those three tools are solidifying your why, identifying what you need, and setting boundaries so that you can give yourself what you need, and then rallying your support system, kind of turning down the you can't people, the criticism people, the negative people, and turning up the yes, you can people. This is normal. You can make your dreams come true, people. Okay. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you did, I would love to hear about it. You can email me at confidence@thefierceframework.net or drop a comment on any of my socials or the podcast platform that you're listening to this on, and let me know what you think. I'm at the Fierce Framework pretty much everywhere. Love to know what you think, especially if this helped you. I need the encouragement, I need that support. But also, if you have any questions or anything that you want to dig deeper into, I love talking to you. And I will, speaking of talking to you, I will include a link if you want to sign up for my newsletter. I drop a little love letter in your inbox every Saturday morning. I also am considering adding on another Wednesday newsletter only when the podcast is dropping, just as a reminder. So if that bi-weekly schedule kind of throws you off and you never know like when a new episode is dropping because I can't commit to weekly, then definitely sign up for the email newsletter because I'm going to start sending out reminders when those podcast episodes do drop so you can make sure not to miss one. All right. You are doing so great. I'm so proud of you. Can't wait to hear from you. I will see you so soon. And until next time, keep becoming fierce.